Oh, you already recording?
Mm-hmm.
I remember when you told me love like this, you never know.
Dear Diaries, my name is Gianna, and this is my story. I left my mom's home at 18, going to college, not really understanding everything about life and what was out there, only what mom gave me, and that was just love. And I went out there and my heart was open, and I was just sharing all that love that I had within me. And sometimes at that time, I didn't have the understanding on like how to guard my heart. There was a innocence to it. So I went out there. I was like, I'm going to start my own life. I'm going to do my own thing. I always had this like mindset of like the American dream. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a family. We're going to do good in school. We're going to both graduate. He's going to have this really good job, and so am I. And we're going to be, this prestigious family, and we're just going to have it all. So I married my daughter's father, Marconi Steele, at the age of 18. When my mom found out, I think she flipped. Well, I know she flipped.
Wow.
Yes, the marriage certificate went to her house. It didn't even come to me. So when it came, she opened it. Because she was like, courthouse, what happened? She opened it. And so she started to read it, and she called me and she was like, what happened? Why didn't you tell us? How could you go get married and not tell anyone? And I was like, well, Mom, I love him. And, we got married, and I wanted to help him as well. Because if I didn't marry him, then he would have to go back to his country. Because he was on an I-9 visa. He was on a student visa. We ended up getting married. I was young. I always used to say, if I knew then what I knew now, we probably could have worked it out. But we ended up staying married for 7 years. But it was like a solid 5. The last 2 we were kind of separated. But he wasn't a bad guy. He was a good guy. He wasn't bad. He never cheated on me. I never had any of those problems. It was just, we were both immature. I would have to say that. I think it was just an immaturity there, and not really truly understanding what it takes to make a marriage work. We ended up divorcing, departing, and going on our own ways. I was probably single, dating for maybe a year or so, and then I ended up meeting my second husband. This gentleman was 17 years older than I was. Yes. So what I didn't get in the first marriage, I looked for in the second. So I was looking for provision. So he was older. He was more settled financially. He could provide. And that's what I didn't have in the first. So in the first, I had like love, true love, first love, we could conquer the world kind of love. But I didn't get the things that I was imagining, that American dream. It didn't result in that white picket fence around that beautiful house that we were supposed to get and stuff. So I was searching for provision. I didn't want to be in lack. I wanted to be taken care of, and that was what he was offering. Sometimes we could want something so bad that we ignore every red flag in front of us. Every red flag. He had 10 children from 10 different women. I think we were like dating for that year. Now, I had a woman come and approach me to tell me that they had been in a relationship for 2 years. So I was like, wait a minute, 2 years, I'm a year, and he's talking about marriage. So I'm confused. I was very confused. And I approached him about it. Like all this was just going on. I approached him about it. He denied it. Oh, this lady is crazy. She's this, she's that. And I wanted it so bad. I wanted the provision. I wanted those things that it was like, even though I may have known deep down within myself that what he was saying was so false or it was a lie, I still received it. I accepted it. It was almost like I got to a point within myself where I was like, it was like I was competing with the other woman to say like, I'm gonna win him and not you. When I look back on it now, it's like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? I should have known my worth. I was so much more than that. That was, my second marriage. And then after that, it was like, I kind of wanted to take a break. I was like, I chose to the first husband and the second husband. And I was dating and I was looking and searching so much. I even got on a dating website. I did the dating website, but I knew I had to be careful because, everyone will forewarn you. You have some people, they're just fishing to look for someone for the one night stand. You have some that are actually serious. And then you have some that, they're just on there, So I actually ended up meeting a couple of guys. I met one and he ended up being a nurse. And it was funny because when I told him the line of work I was in, he was like, we can't proceed. Because he had a marijuana problem.
Oh.
Yes. So he was like, I'm going to respect you. He's like, I like you and everything, but we can't proceed. And that's a habit I'm not willing to drop right now. So I was like, no, that's fine. I thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty. And then another gentleman that I met, he was a teacher. He was from Mississippi. And he played football for the University of Mississippi in his days, I should say. He was teaching at, I think, Charles Flanagan High School. And I met him and we kind of kicked it off, I was like, oh, he's tall. Now this was more of the physical appeal now. I was like, oh, he's tall and da-da-da-da. And I was like, well, it fell with the love. It fell with the one that was a provider. Maybe my standards are too high. Let me lower them. So, and I was like, okay, he has a good job. He has a good background. He seems okay. So when I met him, he did explain to me, he was like, I just had a baby. And I was like, you just had a baby? Why are you on a dating website, And then he started to tell me that him and the mom weren't together, but, they still have a baby. So that's one of those, that's a red flag. It's a red flag. But, I was like, who am I to judge? And so we would go out a couple of times. And I remember, I think a month into dating, he actually asked me if he could borrow money because he had to do, I think it was something for an interview and he needed to get a tie and a shirt. I think we were like a month or so in. And it didn't even dawn on me at that time, like, he asking you for money and you guys are a month in. I was just like, I'm just such a giving person. I was just like, oh, sure, no problem. You can borrow it, just make sure you give it back. So I gave him the money so, he could do that. And then it became a pattern. Then it was like, oh, I need money so I could buy Pampers for my baby, and then I need money so I could do this. And but at that time we were like deep in the relationship. I think we were like 4 months in. And by month 5 he had actually we were cohabitating. So, and I don't even know what I was thinking at that time. I just think I wanted to be loved and to be in some type of relationship. And it was not that I wasn't loved, because my parents loved me. My brother loves me. It was just something that was going on in my mind, and something unbeknownst to me at that time. So I'm in this relationship with this guy. We're like a year in, and I get a phone call from this woman who starts to tell me that she had been dating him for a couple of months, and she couldn't figure out why all of a sudden he couldn't come over her house at nighttime anymore. She thought that was strange and odd. Well, that happened because I changed my shift. Yes, because I used to work overnight, and then I went to the afternoon shift. So I then realized that I had been dating this guy for a whole year, but within that year, while I was working at night, he was out and about, staying over other women's houses, talking to other women, sleeping with other women. I didn't even get the fullness of the degree of it until I was actually willing to leave my job. I hadn't already like packed all my stuff and sent it to Texas because he wanted to go back to Texas. I was gonna leave my job, relocate. I was doing interviews. I was traveling back and forth from Texas to Florida. And another young lady who lives in Texas, I noticed the pattern on the phone bill. Like things were merged with us by this time because we're like almost 2 years now. But I noticed the number all the time. So I called the number and it was a young lady. She knew of me, but I didn't know of her. So, I was like, he's in a relationship and blah, blah. And she's like, okay. Like, okay, you're telling me this. I guess in her mind, she's like, well, if he's in a relationship, why is he talking to me? Why is he spending time with me? Why is he coming over to my house? So at that time, I was heartbroken. I remember when I first came to the ministry that I'm at now, and they would push us to like pray, like to just step out and pray. And I was like, I don't really know how to pray. Like, how do I pray? And this gentleman that I'm talking about now, his mother, she had actually gave me my first journal, like my first prayer diary. Mm-hmm. And she wrote a beautiful message inside. And I didn't even think of it, but I was writing in it. And when I went back to look in it, I was praying and I didn't even realize that I was praying. So it's like that verse in the Bible that says, train your child up in the ways of the Lord, that even if they depart, they will come back. So this is why I was having one of these moments where I was thanking my mom for everything that she's done. Because even though I was in the world, what she planted in me was still there, and it was showing in that diary. It was showing because God was exposing and revealing. It was like he was protecting me and preserving me because everything came out. There was nothing I didn't know. It came to a point where he just confessed everything from day one. I didn't even have to ask. And I know it was God that did everything. So, of course, I then made the decision that this relationship has to come to an end. I was heartbroken over that as well. So after that, I think I was on a pause for a little bit, but I was still dating. And then I met this gentleman at my job. This was probably like a year and a half later. And I was like, I'm not going to date any officers. I'm want to do something completely different. I'm not going to judge by looks and appearance, and I'm just going to try to keep an open mind. So I met this gentleman, and he was not an officer. He was like a social worker. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a social worker. I shouldn't have any problems. I shouldn't have to dig deep or try to find out if he's married, if he's with this person. I'm not going to have that issue because this is a social worker.
I love the line.
Yeah. I'm like, this is a social worker. So we're dating, and he's really nice. He wines and dines. His girls are older. He had one that was about the same age as mine. I think we were like a few months in that relationship, and we decided to, and it was beneficial for both of us. I was looking to get into a place, and so was he. So we decided to cohabitate, and we ended up renting a house together. And that benefited him because then his daughters could come and visit, and then my daughter would have, you know, girls within her age range that she could kind of spend time with. I believe we were like 2 to 3 months in, and aside of him, this was why we were living together, that revealed itself that I was not aware of. It just took me by surprise. I think one day I came home from work, and he had been drinking, but he had been drinking a lot. You know, he had did this like random bath water type of thing, had rose petals all over the place and wine, but I kind of wasn't in it. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I was upset from something that had happened earlier throughout that day, and that was just his way of, I guess, trying to make up for it. So I'm like, I didn't speak to him. I just went straight upstairs. Went upstairs, I closed the room door. So the bath water and all that stuff that he ran from me, he went and got in the tub, and he laid in the tub, and he took a bath, even if it was just for 5 minutes. And then it was like he was saying, well, I'm not gonna give it to you anyways, I'll use it. And he drank the bottle of wine, or the champagne, I should say. And I was like, this man is really crazy. As I was laying in the bed, I realized I needed to run to the bank to make a deposit. So I left the house. I was in like a little house dress, but I knew I wasn't gonna get out of the car. I was gonna go drive through. So I left the house, and I went to the bank. But when I was leaving, he asked me where was I going, but I never answered him. I just left. And then he called me, and I answered, but then I hung up. And I think I was gone for maybe 9 minutes. The bank was literally down the street. And when I came back to the house and I opened the door was barricaded. I was like, what the heck is going on? So I'm pushing the door open, and I realized that the glass tables and everything, they were broken. The furniture was all pushed up to the doors, like the doors were barricaded. And when I walk in the house, I'm like, what's going on? And he's yelling and screaming. He's like, when I call you, you're supposed to answer, and I asked you where you were going. And then he started talking about, what man did you go see? I'm like, in 9 minutes, I went to go see a man? Like, what the heck? So that ended up turning out to be like a really bad fight. He took all my clothes in the closet. He threw them down the stairs. Everything that belonged to me, he threw it down the stairs. But the first thing he took was my cell phone. He threw it, and it was underneath everything. He threw the brand new TV. He took the TV off the wall. He threw it down the stairs, to the point he started to go to my daughter's room and push her furniture down the stairs. And I had just bought, we just got in the house. I had just bought all these things. And I was like, can you please just stop? Like, stop. So he goes, if you want me to stop, you're gonna have to shoot me. And he literally took my gun that was in its case and threw it at me. He took a wrought iron chair that you would put in the bathroom, and he threw it at me. Like, not a small fling, I'm talking about a fling. So, I was just trying to get him to stop, and I'm in the closet, and we're fighting, and like, he hit me one real good time. And that was one of those hits where I'm like, okay, this is a man and I'm a woman, and I'm gonna have to stop. I'm like, I can't even call the police because my cell phone was at the bottom of the pile and everything was on top of it. And I was like, okay, I have a house phone, but where's the house phone? The house phone had got thrown and slung underneath the dresser. So I was on the ground, like, looking for the house phone, and I found it, and I called the police, and I was like, please send help. He's hit me, and I got blood, like I have blood running from my nose and stuff. So the police came, and I didn't press charges because of, where I worked, and then that would lead to a whole nother thing. I would have to do a report. That report would have to go to work, and work would have to investigate, and it would have been a whole complete mess. So I ended up calling a sergeant of mine, and he was explaining to me how I should handle myself, and that's what I did. But the police asked him to leave and then to come back later. So he left. I changed the alarm codes. I changed everything. And he came back that morning, and I remember laying in the bed, and when I heard the alarm go off, I had never felt fear like that before. Like, I know how women, you know, at that time I said to myself, I know what it feels. I can understand. I can relate now to a woman that says they were in an abusive relationship. Like, that was fear. Like, I sat up in the bed with the light on. It took me hours to fall asleep. I think by the time I fell asleep, that's when he was coming in. And I jumped up out of the bed, and I could just feel fear all over me. I didn't even know what to do or how to conduct myself. I had never experienced anything like that before in my life. It was very traumatic, and it was very scary because you just never know the outcome. When someone says shoot me, or that's the only way you're going to get me to stop, and you know, they have like a murderous mindset or tendencies because now they're distributing it or displaying it, and they're battling or dealing with anger. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. But from that moment, I realized that this wasn't the first time. This was something he had done before. I actually ended up not going to work for a week because, you know, I'm fair complexion. I have bruises all over my body. And I remember that day when he came back that morning. Like, I did come downstairs. To glory be to God that my daughter happened to be spending the weekend with my parents. And he came to approach me. And I happened to be like trying to fix myself something to eat, and I had a knife in my hand. I don't even know what crossed my mind, but as he walked to me, I turned around and I swung the knife. And I was like, please don't come near me. I had that much fear in me that I was like, I didn't know what he was capable of. Even if he approached me in a sincere way, even if it was humble, if it was subtle, as far as I was concerned, what I just experienced, it constituted me swinging a knife.
It was enough.
Yeah, so that was like 3 months in. I was like, whoa, we still have this house that we just rented, and we stayed there. Yep, the two of us stayed there until the lease finished. Yep, I stayed in one room, he stayed in another room, and my daughter stayed in her room. And we stayed there until the lease finished. And then he moved out and I remained. Now I say all this because, you know, I got married at 18. You know, I got divorced. I got married again. And then I got divorced. That relationship was infidelity, cheating on both ends. So I'm guilty as well. Totally out of character for me. And then, you know, there were several relationships afterwards. But I say all that is, you have to really pay attention to what is the driving force. What is driving you into the arms of this man? What is driving you into the arms of this man? I came to the revelation afterwards that I was dealing with a level of falsehood that was gone. I was dealing with my wants, and my wants was driving me into certain relationships. I want this, and I would even deceive myself, even tell myself a story, lie to myself. So I was in self-deception as well. Oh, it'll be okay. I was making excuses or justifying. Oh, this happened, but it'll be okay. And this was with each relationship. And I noticed that with each relationship, it was the same kind of man, but it was a different man. And it got worse each time.